Hey there friends, welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm of course the one and only truth pimp, Paul Glasgow, bringing you a vulgar display of logic and reason you're probably not going to find pretty much everywhere else. There's not a whole lot of logic and reason being dispelled across the worldwide internet, right? I want to talk to you a little bit today about renters. How many of you guys out there are renters? How many of you are gun owners? Do you know that your landlord, according to rules, and I say rules because I don't consider rules laws because they're not. You can't go to jail for breaking a rule. There are rules out there that could disarm you in that rental property that you're a part of, and you may not even know it. A lot of people, whenever they go to sign their lease or their rental agreement, it's 2, 3, 4 pages long, whatever it is, and they just rip through it because they're either so excited they're getting their place, or they're in such a hurry to get their place, or they don't care about all the legal jargon that's in that contract or lease agreement. There may be something in there prohibiting you from actually having firearms, not fireworks, probably fireworks too, but from having firearms on that property. Now, I will say this, most of your anti-gun rental places, the people who are renting to you are more than happy to tell you that it's a non-firearm place. In other words, they usually hang their hat on that. That's something they're proud of. So they're more than likely going to tell you. I doubt it's going to be a surprise. But there are a lot of places out there that have this. You'd be surprised how many places, rental property, apartment complexes, duplexes, or single units actually have these types of agreements, or at least things written into their agreements. Well, there's a law being floated right now that would eliminate all that, which I know what you're thinking, same as I am. We already have a law. It's called the Constitution and the Second Amendment. A U.S. congressman has put forth a bill out there that's going to negate any type of clauses in your rental agreement that might prohibit you from having a firearm on that property. The Preserving Rights of Tenants by Ensuring Compliance to Protect the Second Amendment Act. Here we go again with these stupid little names of bills to make a cute little word, but whatever. Republicans and Democrats both do it. H.R. 2930 was introduced by Republican U.S. Representative Randy Feenstra of Iowa. In a nutshell, it would ensure that landlords and rental property managers cannot unlawfully restrict tenants from firearm ownership, which is currently a common problem. According to the congressman, the right of Iowans to keep and bear arms is enshrined in our Constitution and shall not be infringed. These constitutional protections must be strongly defended and certainly do not cease to exist for gun owners living in rental properties. The Protect the Second Amendment Act ensures that landlords or rental property managers who receive federal financial assistance at taxpayer expense cannot unlawfully restrict Americans from exercising their constitutional rights. As a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, I will always defend the right of Iowans to keep and bear arms and support law-abiding gun owners. Well, to be clear, this is not just for Iowans, this is for all Americans, right? This just happens to be an Iowan congressperson who's putting this bill out there. I have so many emotions regarding this. First of all, if you notice, within the bill, it's written that if the landlord themselves receive any federal funding that has anything to do with their rental property, that they can't implement a rule like this, a rule prohibiting you from having firearms on the rental property. Why does that have to be tied to federal funding? How about if you're a landlord and you have a clause in your contracts that would disarm anybody on your property, that is null and void per the Constitution. Let's just recognize the Constitution. And I'm not trying to make this another one of those, we already have a Constitution. But it's true. Why would it need to be tied to federal funding? If you can pass a law that says you cannot disarm people on rental property, it should have nothing to do with the receiving of federal funding. Let's just make it a thing, period. And I guess my second point is, why are rental properties still receiving federal funding? I know Section 8 housing, that's the easy way out. That's easy money. The whole Section 8 housing thing it's such a farce. I mean, I understand why landlords are so happy to do it, because they receive all this easy money from the federal government that the government's more than happy to dole out to them in order to force different people into a certain neighborhood, one way or the other, to make that rent, I guess, a little bit more affordable. That's some of the federal funding. But why would any of these places receive any other federal funding. I already don't agree with the Section 8 stuff, but is there another form of federal funding that they're receiving out there besides the Section 8 housing to offset and supplement those rental or lease agreements with more low-income type renters? Now, if you read the bill, it more than likely does point to Section 8 type housing because it states to ensure that residents of covered federally assisted rental housing may lawfully possess firearms. First of all, that's silly that that's ever a thing, because if you think about it, most of your low-income housing that's federally assisted with Section 8, it's going to attract, this is not my opinion, this is a statistical fact. If you get mad about it, I don't care because it is a fact. It's going to attract lower-income people, ends up having higher rates of crime. And you know, and I know, we all know that whenever you attract lower-income people, if you're getting your feelings in a little bit of an uproar right now, again, this ain't the channel to watch because I'm just going to keep my foot on the gas. I'm not stopping from that. What you're bringing in is what? A more dangerous element, right? So by you accepting that federal money and at the same time disarming people in your community, you're making a huge amount of low-income people unsafe because now you're telling them, hey, we think guns are going to make our area more unsafe because you're stupid and brainwashed and you listen to the people on the wacko far left. So you believe that the presence of a gun is going to naturally make your area, what? Again, unsafe, stupid. So the criminals don't care about your clause. The criminals don't care about your little rule. They don't care about the lease. In fact, they probably can't pass a background check anyway. They're not signing leases or signing rental agreements. So none of the people that it matters to are following or even know about your clause. So I have a real problem with renters out there thinking that they're doing something good whenever all they're doing is disarming good people who likely need that protection because they are in areas that have a higher rate of crime. Statistically speaking, we go back to every single form of gun control from the dawn of time has always been to disarm people, and in many cases, the people who need it the most. So here we go once again by doing this. Now, I did a little bit of digging myself, and I wanted to know the answer to the question, can a landlord enforce gun control? My house, my rights, you might be thinking, right? The Fair Housing Act, which protects tenants and applicants from being discriminated against, does not protect rights to guns. Therefore, landlords are federally allowed to discriminate against rental applicants and tenants with regard to having guns. Doesn't mean your state laws allow it, although some have. Boy, that's crazy. So the Fair Housing Act, which is a law passed by Congress, how does that somehow manage to supersede the Constitution? I know what you're thinking, likely the same thing I am. Well, they passed a law for gun-free zones. That seems to violate the Constitution directly, so I guess they're getting in the habit of doing this left and right. I think what needs to happen is somebody has to be wrong. First of all, a lot of people have been wrong with gun-free zones. Maybe somebody ought to sue the federal government for that so we can get rid of those stupid things, because there's a laundry list of people scattered with tombstones that have befallen themselves at the behest of this stupid gun-free zone. But this Fair Housing Act, I wonder if there's somebody out there that has standing with the federal government in the judicial system who has been disarmed in one of these Section 8 housing or federally supplemented housing that has been disarmed to the point where they could not defend themselves and a violent crime was conducted against them. I think that would be an interesting case, because having an act like the Fair Housing Act pretty much override the Constitution doesn't seem like something that would hold up if it made it to the Supreme Court. I understand the Supreme Court is in the habit of waffling a whole lot here lately. I begin kind of really wonder if Roberts' name isn't on the Epstein list because we can't get the list, and Roberts is starting to really change his tune. Really odd there. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence in anything making it to the Supreme Court that's going to help us out. But I do feel like there might be a legitimate court case out there if you can find the right district or area court system in the country that this might happen to, because it sounds like this is pretty rampant. I also wonder if the American Civil Liberties Union would not want to take a look at this also, because it is in fact discriminating against, in many cases, lower income people who are going to be the ones that are going to be disarmed. So I think their civil liberties are being taken away from them by not being able to exercise a God-given right to them. The federal government is stripping them of that right. And I think the American Civil Liberties Union should take a look at that. You know, as left-leaning as they are, they have come to the defense of people before regarding gun rights whenever they were minorities. Again, doesn't matter to us. They don't care about our rights. But let them trample on the rights of some disadvantaged minorities out there, and you might see the ACLU really get a little bit active. Now, in my digging, I also found that this was an interesting point, that transporting of guns on rental property and housing them in the apartment, these are all things that would be against their rules if they had some kind of this fair housing rule that went into place prohibiting these firearms. But you know what they can't look at? I realize a landlord has the right to go into your property and inspect the property, right? They just do. I mean, that's a thing. You know what they can inspect? A gun safe. Or a safe in general. Let's not call it a gun safe, because that might imply there's a gun in it. They cannot inspect your safe. I don't care what's written in their clause. They don't have the right to do that. You do not have to open your safe up. If your landlord comes onto your property, comes into your place, which they have the right to, I think they have to be announced and at least let you know. But anyway, if they are there and they tell you, I need to look inside that safe, you can tell them to kick rocks, because you do not have to open that safe up. Just know that. You do have some rights there. There is a certain level of privacy when it comes to your locked safe on the property. Now, lock it, right? Don't leave it open, because they can just peer inside of it, especially if you're not there. But definitely remember that you do not have to open that safe up if they ask or tell you to. Now, as I wrap this thing up, I've heard people argue both sides of this. And one of the sides that I've heard is that, well, you know, your apartment complex can dictate whether or not you have a pet. It can dictate whether or not you smoke. They have noise ordinances and things like that. None of those things are constitutional rights. None of them are. Having a dog is not a fundamental right. You have the right to have a dog, just not at my apartment complex. You have a right to keep and bear arms. Oh, wait, you're telling me I can't at your apartment complex? Again, somebody has to be done wrong. And I guess the follow-up to that is, what happens if they find out you got one? I mean, seriously, what do? Evict you? I mean, you're not going to jail because it's not a law. Worst they can do is tell you to leave. Now, granted, that's if they do their due diligence and do their work. That's going to follow you wherever you go, and you might have an issue renting somewhere else, but don't rent there. And I really think that tying this federal money to it, if that's what it takes to do that, think about this. Think of all the Section 8 housing. There's housing that you don't realize, probably nice looking apartment complexes very near your home that are Section 8 housing. There's a lot of federally funded property out there. I used to read meters for an electric company years ago when I was just in college. And I was amazed at how many Section 8 places there were out there that growing up, I had no idea that was Section 8. I was like, this is a pretty nice place. Apartment complexes that I thought were really nicer, higher end apartment complexes that had Section 8 families in them. So you'd be surprised how much of that federal funding is spread out across the country out there to offset and subsidize all these payments of these leases and these rents. Now just know this is likely not going to pass. You got to understand that with the Senate right now needing 60 to pass anything in the Senate, that's not going to happen. I mean, you can't do it with a simple majority in the Senate right now. So this bill might just be window dressing. It's like I say before, though, at least we're putting the idea out there and people will start to get used to it. To me, I don't think this is a crazy idea either. Like I said, I don't think it needs to be tied to the federal money. I don't think you should be able to make a clause like that, regardless of the situation being tied to federal money. But if this bill itself is a way to get started in order to move that needle a little bit, then fine. But again, I don't think it has any kind of a real chance. The Democrats are certainly not going to assist, and you may even have some of these wacko Republicans, Cassidy, Cornyn, those people are likely not going to vote for something like this. I think both of them, there's a possibility they'll be primaried out or voted out. So maybe they bend a little bit, because remember, they're the ones, two of those, that voted for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act by Joe Biden. So maybe they are going to see the writing on the wall, but it doesn't matter. You need some Democrats to assist also, and that's just simply not going to happen, not in this day and time. And another thing I always like to point out, you know, every time that we have the executive branch and the legislative branch, meaning the Senate and the House, they never pass any pro-Second Amendment bills. They never do. We sit here and beat our chest and talk about it when there's a Democrat in the White House or whenever the Democrats control the House or the Senate or both. And we say, oh, we get in there. You know, Biden had everything in his favor and was able to pass an anti-gun bill that funded a whole bunch of garbage. He's funding red flag gun laws and things like that out there. We talk a big game. I'm talking about conservatives. Put a couple of Republicans in there. Got a Republican in the White House, Republican-controlled Senate and House. Do you see any pro-gun bills that have the possibility of passing right now? I don't. I mean, there's very few that have been floated out there. I've seen some, I know Eric Burlison has put some good bills out. He's a congressman from Missouri. He's done a really good job. Representative Cloud has done some good things out there also. And now we've got this congressman doing the same. So I think people are doing some things. I just wonder if they know those bills won't pass and they're doing this just to get some support in their communities, or if their heart really is in it and they're trying to push something through while they have these majorities. Again, knowing these things won't pass in the Senate, I guess it's great to at least get it to the finish line, although you can't get it over it. It'd be nice to see that at some point. You know what? Maybe these are some things that Trump needs to consider as far as executive orders. I think this would be worthy of an executive order, to be honest with you. Guys, look, I got something to ask you. I'm in the process of writing my second book. I need some help. What I'm looking for is, I'm looking for some people out there who are willing to provide me with maybe once a week. I'll pick one day a week because I put a video out every single day. And I think what I'm going to do is get viewers, get people with either up and coming channels on YouTube, people who are dabbling in the same kind of content that you might see here on this channel, but have you provide me a little bit of your own stuff. In other words, kind of like a correspondent or a reporter that works with me. And give me one day a week where I'm not having to put a video out, where the viewers or one of you guys supply me with the video. And it doesn't have to be one person. It can be 4 people a month, one person a week. But somebody that can put something together for me, and it doesn't have to be as not that mine are highly produced, but it doesn't have to have all the screen grabs and things like that I put in my videos. It could just be as simple standing in front of a mic and talking about a gun-related issue that either came up in Congress or that's being talked about with the anti-gun community or something of that sort that falls in line with the type of content that I put out over here. And the reason for that would give me one day off a week to do a little bit more research and a little bit more writing for my second book. My second book is going to be on my motive classification method that I designed that talks about and breaks apart actual reasons why people are taking the lives of other people, so that we can really start to drill down and look at the actual root causes of all these different types of gun-related homicides out there, and even suicides. I'm going to include some stuff in there too, and actually make a difference. All these people out there talking about gun violence and how they're trying to reduce gun violence, and then they throw a bill out there that's going to be something that bans semi-automatic handguns and shotguns and rifles. That's not even attempting to look at the root cause and determine what the problem is and fix anything. I want to look at the root causes, which in many cases, it's mentoring people and changing the way people think so that they don't then decide to take another life, which they usually end up going and grabbing a gun. But they've made that decision well before they got that gun. I'm looking to make a difference, to change things and actually solve some of these issues that all these politicians and civic leaders don't want to do anything about. Because why? Oh, they might offend a voter or two, because that's who's shooting each other. Their kids at the tennis courts at 2 a.m. I'm looking to make a difference. That's what my second book is on. My second book is sourced with a lot of different stuff that talks about why these different types of shootings happen, how they get to that point, how the mind arrives at these decisions. So in order to do that, I'm looking for your help. So those of you that want to give a hand, reach out to me. Email me at paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Again, paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Tell me what you got in mind. If you have to, send me like a snippet of something that you can do or you have done or you're capable of, or something you've done in the past and you want to send me the link. Just a way that I can look at it and see, all right, this is it. And we'll talk about topics when that time comes, and I will simply take that from you guys. I won't edit it. I'll take it from you guys and I'll upload it as is. And you'll get, I mean, obviously, I'm going to give you full credit and full recognition of whatever you're doing. So if you have a channel similar to mine and that is more in your wheelhouse, certainly email me. Again, paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Guys, thanks again. Please like the video. Please comment down below. I'd love to hear your comments down below. And also share the video. Make sure you are subscribed. And make sure you ring that bell. Because YouTube does not like this channel. And they will unsubscribe you. And they will unring that bell for you. At no charge. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me one more day.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's so horrible!